Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda, and please welcome to our Operation Freedom platform, WeThePeopleProcessing.com. You know, are you tired of being threatened to be canceled just because you have a company focused on liberty and freedom? Well, worry no more, folks. WeThePeopleProcessing.com is your go-to merchant services, freedom-based company to provide business service payment solutions. We the People Processing provides their clients a cancel culture-free platform which is domestically based. They provide competitive rates, no contracts with next-day funding, a fully vetted and like-minded financial infrastructure, and full support for integrations, implementation, and e-commerce efforts. Bottom line, WeThePeopleProcessing.com focuses on defending your company's free market growth, values, and future. Check them out at www.WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Once you're on the site, enter in password Operation Freedom or call 855-499-2024. That's WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Then, when on the website, enter Operation Freedom as your password or call 855-499-2024. First, before we get to our first guest, Michael Cutler, who's our country's number one expert as it relates to immigration, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Illinois, after the horrendous tornadoes which decimated their states, and in particular Kentucky. We have a listening audience that's based in all 50 states in this country, actually 120 countries worldwide, of folks that listen to this show every week. But we have a significant listening audience in Kentucky, and our thoughts and prayers are with the patriots that are trying to deal with this mayhem. Speaking of mayhem, our first guest, Michael Cutler, has been one of the most outspoken patriots in our country about the devastation illegal immigration has on every person in this country and in every state, because as he has pointed out to all of us, every state is a border state. Why? Because we have airports, we have bus terminals, we have access to people of the world that come to our country legally and illegally. A little background on Michael. He has 30 years of experience with the former Immigration and Naturalization Services. He was an examiner to the unit which was responsible for adjudicating petitions filed by United States citizens and lawfully admitted permanent resident aliens on behalf of their alien spouses. He was an immigration inspector assigned to Kennedy International Airport in New York. Michael was a criminal investigator, a special agent for INS in New York City. Michael was the INS representative to the Unified Intelligence Division of the DEA in New York. He was also a senior special agent assigned to the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. Bottom line, folks, Michael's career was unusual in that it provided him with a grand tour that gave him extensive insight into many aspects of immigration and also provided him with an intimate view on how immigration impacted other law enforcement agencies within the United States and every American citizen. Look, he has a phenomenal website, Michael Cutler, Cutler, michaelcutler.net. It's my honor to welcome back my friend, Mike Cutler. Mike, welcome back to the Operation Freedom Show and platform.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. Thank you for that great introduction. You know, it's amazing, but the globalists in both parties, and by the way, it started with the Republicans, this notion of bringing in foreign workers to displace American workers, to drive down wages. And then Chuck Schumer, pardon me, I have a little frog in my throat. Chuck Schumer, when he chaired the Senate Immigration Subcommittee, had Alan Greenspan testify for him about what they called comprehensive immigration reform, and said that the solution to wage inequality, if you could imagine this, is to make high-tech American workers compete with foreign workers so we could slash their wages, and then we would be able to greatly reduce inequality in wages between Americans with skills and those with lesser skills. So in other words, if you get rid of the middle class, the working poor will have nobody to be envious of. This destroys opportunities for Americans. It disincentivizes achievement, and it has resulted in a massive transference of intellectual property that came from the United States to people around the world, including our adversaries. Think of how China has been so successful at committing espionage against America. The intelligence services, in fact, have sarcastically come to refer to Chinese espionage as Chinese takeout. It's that pervasive. We trained their programmers, and then they hack our computers. We educated their engineers, and then they built up their military by stealing military secrets from American companies, and now they're rattling their sabers at us with the technology they stole from America. And then you look at the narcotics flowing into the country. You look at the amount of money being transferred from the United States to the home countries of foreign workers who work in the United States. And I don't blame those workers. They're acting in their own best interest. Our own government, on the other hand, is acting against our own best interest, and it's both parties. Now, if you look at where we are now with Biden, I have 3 articles that I would love your audience to check out. I write for Front Page Magazine, proud to have been affiliated with the David Horowitz Freedom Center that sponsors Front Page since 2014. I also write for another website, U.S. Incorporated, usinc.org. And what I focused on in 3 of my most recent articles, 2 for Front Page, my latest at U.S. Inc., is Build Back Better. And in fact, I've written several articles previously where I refer to it as bunk, Build Back Better bunk, or BS perhaps. I was listening this morning to the news, and some Democrat congressman came on hawking, Build Back Better, we're going to make everything better, and prices will go down, and jobs will go up. So let's just take the immigration element out of Build Back Better, because immigration impacts everything. You'd be hard pressed to find a single crisis or problem or threat that we confront that isn't impacted by failures to secure the borders or really know who we're admitting, or not by flooding more people into the United States than we can deal with. And by the way, the open borders crowd will say, well, Mike Cutler is anti-immigrant. Nothing could be further from the truth. We already have the most generous immigration policies in the world. America, I don't know where we are with COVID, but prior to COVID, we were admitting more than 1 million lawful immigrants each and every year, more than the rest of the world combined. Every year we admit tens of millions of temporary visitors. Again, more than the rest of the world combined. This isn't about being anti-immigrant. It's about making certain that we don't let in aliens who pose a threat to national security, public safety, public health, or the jobs and wages of Americans. If you go to Title 8, United States Code Section 1182, I'll repeat that. Write it down and check it out, or look at my articles, because I always include links to various relevant sections of law. But Title 8, United States Code Section 1182, enumerates the categories of aliens who should not be admitted into the United States. There is not a single word about race or religion or ethnicity. This nonsense that this is about racism and xenophobia is a big, juicy lie. It's, again, about aliens who are criminals, aliens with dangerous diseases, aliens who are terrorists and spies, human rights violators, human traffickers, drug smugglers, aliens who would become a public charge, or if they weren't, would displace American workers. This is common sense. It's an example of a government looking out for its own people and living up to Lincoln's aspirational view of our country as possessing a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Well, the amnesty, and if you look at the numbers, supposedly will, quote, only provide amnesty to 6.5 million illegal aliens. I love the word only, because Biden claimed he wanted to do it for 11 million. Right. Yale University said there was at least double that number, and that was back in 2018 before Biden took office and took down our borders. So I would argue we probably have 30 or 35 or 40 million right now. But here's the problem. And we saw this with the idiotic Reagan amnesty. It's both parties, okay? And I've written about how when George W. Bush created the Department of Homeland Surrender, as I came to call DHS, He violated the enabling legislation of the Homeland Security Act. There was not supposed to be two separate entities of Customs and Border Protection and then ICE. They were supposed to be unified. They weren't supposed to blend other agencies in. They were supposed to make sure that immigration was the focus because it was determined by the 9/11 Commission, to which I provided testimony, by the way, that it was immigration failures alone that enabled 9/11 and other terror attacks to be carried out successfully in the United States. So everyone knew border security, immigration law enforcement, critical. Also, interior enforcement, critical. We've never had interior enforcement. Why? Because if you arrest illegal aliens, those same immigration agents are also going to uncover crooked attorneys. They're also going to uncover crooked employers. And when you look at where we are, do you really think that they wanted crooked lawyers and crooked employers to be punished when we know that these companies and attorneys and the American Immigration Lawyers Association is providing massive campaign contributions to the politicians? And many of the politicians are themselves immigration lawyers. Bob Goodlatte, who was the Republican chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, the Judiciary Committee oversees immigration as well as the FBI, DEA, the U.S. Marshals, and so forth. Goodlatte was an immigration lawyer who specialized in H-1B visas. And when I had a one-on-one argument with him about that, he told me how his brilliant son, who knows a lot about computers, would love to bring in tens of thousands of brilliant Indian programmers to do great work. And I said, my first wife tragically died in her early 30s of cancer, was a brilliant programmer. She had an MBA in computer science. She was a Phi Beta Kappa graduate, belonged to the National Math Honor Society, and many of her friends had comparable credentials. You're firing them and bringing in people from India. How do you explain it? Do these people chop liver to you? And at that point, Goodlatte ended our conversation. So you've got both parties doing this. Zoe Lofgren, who now chairs the immigration subcommittee in the House, the Democrat Party is in charge of Congress now. They've got the majority. She was a major player in the American Immigration Lawyers Association. This is a delivery system for them. So they're talking about $6.5 million, and this is because this is the number the Congressional Budget Office gave us. Well, the Reagan administration claimed their amnesty would only involve about $1 million. We wind up with almost $4 million. Think about that. Nobody has any idea how many are here. And how do you prevent someone from entering the United States and lying about their date of entry? Because now what Biden wants to do, he claims, is that only aliens who've been here at least since 2011 would qualify for amnesty. What prevents an alien from coming here 6 months from now and saying, I've been here since 2010? There is zero capability of interviewing anybody. There is zero capability of investigating millions of applications. It's not going to happen. All the adjudicators will do, and I spent a year as an adjudicator, I'm very familiar with the process, they're going to look at a computer screen. They're going to look at the answers that the alien applicant for amnesty is going to give. If the alien says, I entered in 2009, they will approve the application. They have no alternative. If you can't provide evidence as an adjudicator that the applicant is lying, you have to approve the application. Add to that the fact that Mayorkas, who runs Homeland Security, was investigated by the Office of Inspector General when he was the head of Citizenship and Immigration Services for Obama. And the people who worked for him complained bitterly that he ordered them to approve applications that were fraudulent or that never should have been approved. In fact, the FBI and Homeland Security investigations told him that a particular company that was filing for treaty trader visas, EB-5 visas, may have a direct nexus to terrorism, and their applications must be denied. Guess what? He approved them. And ABC News did an extensive multi-part report. It was an excellent piece of work on just how corrupt he was when he headed up Citizenship and Immigration Services. Well, now he runs Homeland Security, and Citizenship and Immigration Services is under his command. By the way, if you look at who was just picked to head up Border Patrol, the U.S. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, it's a former police chief from Arizona who, when he was asked by the Border Patrol not long ago to provide manpower to look for a fugitive who escaped from Immigration Border Patrol custody, he refused to cooperate and said, I don't work with the Border Patrol. He is now the head of the agency that oversees the Border Patrol. Now, what happens if we wind up with 25 million aliens getting lawful status? If you think that number is a problem, and again, they're not giving you the information, they will immediately have an absolute right to petition to bring in all of their children and minor children and spouses. So if on average, each alien that we legalize has 4 kids, not unreasonable. It could be 8 kids. It could be 12. God knows. And with Mayorkas saying approve everything, I guarantee you they won't be checking DNA. So imagine if we legalize 25 million, no investigations, no interviews, and they bring in 4 kids each on average. Folks, we're looking at an influx of 100 million. And I wrote about this on the front page, and I always like to read the comments that follow my articles after they're posted. And someone said, this guy Cutler is nuts. They don't have that many kids in Latin America. And you know what? He was right. But he was right. But they're not only coming from Latin America. Right. Aliens flooding across the border are coming from countries in the Middle East, including countries that sponsor terrorism. They're coming from China. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from Africa. They're coming from the Caribbean. They're coming from everywhere but the North Pole. Maybe Santa Claus will be on his way pretty soon, too. So understand that if we have an influx of tens of millions of aliens, many of them children who will need to go to school, what will that do to the school system? What will it do to the environment? They're so big on the environment, and that was why my most recent article for Front Page Magazine, my title was Environmental Impact Study Must Precede Build Back Better. I hope you checked the article out. If you remember, back in the 70s, there was a little critter called the snail darter. And it was a little fish the size of a paperclip, and environmentalists said, if you build this dam that they were looking to build, that snail darter will go extinct. For a bunch of reasons, including that concern about the environment and the snail darter, they canceled the dam. Now, you could take either side of that argument. I believe in a healthy environment for our planet and our people. So if you're pro-environment, why would you want to have tens of millions of people coming to America? Because everyone who comes here needs more than a pillow to sleep on. Everybody needs water. And I did a little bit of reading, and the average consensus is that the average person needs at least 85 gallons of water per day for cooking, for drinking, for sanitary purposes. Everybody needs food. That requires acreage of land, and that land, by the way, needs to be irrigated. Meanwhile, there's a well-documented water shortage in the western half of the United States. Is this the time to bring in tens of millions of people who will require 85 gallons each of water and electricity and sewerage and clothing and shelter? The price of housing will go through the roof. That's why you see all these tent cities. It's not just drug addicts and crazy people that are homeless now. We've displaced high-tech American workers by bringing in an army of foreign workers from India and elsewhere. When you're 50 years old and you've been earning $150,000 a year as a programmer, you've done everything right to qualify for your little sliver of the American dream, and you get fired because your company just hired an army of workers from overseas. How do you replace that job when you're 50 or 55 years old? The answer is you can't. You wind up looking for a minimum wage job, and very often these poor folks default on their mortgages, not because they were lazy and didn't want to go to work, but their jobs went away. So housing goes up because more people need a place to sleep. Wages go down because we've flooded the labor pool with foreign workers who will work for third world wages, and this is also about supply and demand. And meanwhile, Biden is promising us a rosy future if we pass, or the Senate passes, Build Back Better. What I want everyone to do is to reach out to your senator. I guarantee you many of them are clueless about immigration or what the real numbers will look like. It took me 90 seconds to convince Jim Sensenbrenner, when he was chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, to do a 180 on George W. Bush's guest worker program. He was not even aware of some of the problems. He was willing to listen to me, and within 10 days, not only withdrew his support for the bill that he previously supported, but acted to oppose the bill and blocked it. We need, as Americans, to take citizenship seriously. We need to speak to our senators and make sure they understand that Build Back Better would be catastrophic for America and Americans.
You know, Mike, the crisis that you have outed and have done so for decades is not by accident. I want to play a very brief clip. This is Rahm Emanuel, the former chief of staff to Barack Obama, the former globalist mayor of Chicago. This crisis, as it relates to illegal immigration, is willful, and it is for the purpose of the syndicate. Derek, hit the clip, and then let's get Mike's take.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
There's their game plan, Mike.
And they are creating the crisis. And everyone says to me very foolishly, well, the Democrats just want to import foreign voters. That may have been the case at one point, but now they're at the point that I believe, because if you look back in 2006, Bernie Sanders warned against the hiring of illegal aliens. He said if you displace Americans, you drive down wages, destroy the middle class. They all were in on it. That's why I'm a registered Democrat. These aren't Democrats any longer. What I believe they want to do is crash the economy. If they crash the economy, everybody will need to go to the government for money to put the lights on in their houses at night.
Yep.
And then they win. Then we have a one-party system.
That's
they
right.
will impose socialism and communism and totalitarianism upon us. And the Republicans are too damn greedy, taking the bribes from corporate donors, because those bribes are nothing, those campaign contributions are nothing more than bribes. So this is all about feathering their nest, so that the immigration system has become a delivery system that delivers an unlimited supply of cheap, exploitable labor, and I assure you there's no compassion there, an unlimited supply of foreign tourists and foreign students, and for the lawyers, an unlimited supply of clients. When you speak to your neighbors, this is the holiday season, and I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy, Healthy New Year. When you speak to your neighbors, folks, the people that are trying to be compassionate aren't the enemy. They've been misled the way that people were swindled by Madoff. You probably became friends with them because they were compassionate people. We should be compassionate. The problem is the solution to world hunger isn't to bring billions of people to the United States who now live in poverty in their home countries. When we're on airplanes, we're told put on the mask first if there's a problem with oxygen. America needs the mask. The American citizens need the mask. And the United States government should be making the first consideration, what's in the best interest of the average American. And that hasn't happened for far too long.
Mike, in our closing minute and a half, educate our listeners in how they can get in touch with you and how they can follow your efforts on a daily basis.
Absolutely. My own personal website, my favorite, of course, Michael Cutler, Cutler, michaelcutler.net. I write for Front Page Magazine, frontpagemag.com. I write for usinc.org. And I also host the Michael Cutler Radio Hour, the Michael Cutler Hour on Blog Talk Radio, Friday night, 7 p.m. East Coast time. Please take the links that are on these various websites and forward them to everyone. Be part of my bucket brigade of truth. I always like to make the point that democracy is not a spectator sport. We have to take citizenship and our responsibilities as citizens seriously before we lose the ability to do just that. These folks are the enemies of freedom. They're the enemies of capitalism. And we are living in a perilous era.